Thank you so much. Laura, will you check on your phone if the live stream isn't working? Thank you. We're Billy Wilder. When John Monday asked us to come here, a dear friend who grew up in Brookline and makes his home here, without a question, we wanted to be here right away. This is a moment where we can actually seize this energy to turn a dark time into a bright time. But it's going to take all of us coming together to have important and difficult conversations, and sometimes giving up something so that we can build something together. Are you with me, my friends in Brookline? Yes. All right. Like I mentioned, our new EP just came out today. We're going to play the title track for you. This is called What You Looking For. In the darkest of danger, find ourselves with no illusion. Staring face to face with fear. Come the solution. Come the solution. If I were you really looking for, if I were you really looking for,
I'm trying to be creative and think about how we can profit.
I know, I'm wondering, are you going to use those funds?
Eventually.
Okay.
Eventually. Oh, like towards the end, actually. You know,
literally,
thank you
it's
so
just
much.
something.
I want to give a shout out to my friend Joni Lore. It's her
Honestly, it might
birthday
be,
this week.
better than
Everybody
that
give it
shaky
up to her.
hands.
45 this week, everybody. Joni. She was such a kind friend.
hold on.
I have been really needing a refuge from the city and wanted to take some time to write some new music, and I reached out to her and she graciously shared her beautiful place with me in New Hampshire this past weekend, and I wrote 3 or 4 new songs up there, so much gratitude to you, Joni Lore. And I'm gonna play one of the songs written up there. I wrote the lyrics to this song on the day after the insurrection, when I was just horrified by what had been becoming of our country and the realities that we face and the disparities we face, and also how polarized we've become. And that led to the lyrics of this song, which I put to music over the weekend. And it's all Thank you so much, my friends. We are surviving a pandemic. We're coming together to build equality and justice, and it starts by creating common space. Thank you for being here. We're going to be back with more music after some phenomenal speakers. If you want to come say hello to us, we'll be hanging out. We've got some brand new music available and some a lot of good energy to share with you. And we'll keep this live stream rolling for these amazing speakers, and we'll be back with another set. Thank you so much.
All right, let's give it up one more time for Billy Wilder. All right, everybody, I'm going to ask you one more time, if you feel comfortable, get a little closer. We're gonna dive into our speaking lineup. And once again, I just want to thank you for coming out. This is a great turnout. And, this is the start of a conversation that's much bigger than you and I in investing on social services and education and public housing, and really building infrastructure that's going to outlast all of us. And the conversation starts now. And it already started, I would say, really, with some of these amazing speakers that are going to come up. So, without further ado, I'm going to introduce Deborah Brown. Coming up, Deborah Brown.
How's everybody doing? Alright. Oh, no. We can go a little louder than that. This is a justice rally. Come on. I woke up this morning and I was upset. And I was upset about just, I never wake up in a foul mood. I always wake up in a pretty good mood. But I woke up because I had been at community meetings last night, and I was like, these people don't care. They don't care. And then I started thinking about this, I would say that at least half the people here are parents. And you know the statement that you are as happy as your least happy child. Now, if you analogize that to a town being a family, how many people are we letting down? So, let me tell you, 12% of Brookline lives in poverty. Within the Asian community, 19% live in poverty. African Americans, 32% live in poverty. Latinx, 19%. Multiracial, 20%. Whites, 9%. That's a lot of poor people. That's 12% of this town that we have managed to make invisible. We have managed to make these people invisible, and I woke up because it breaks my heart. It breaks my heart. So, we gotta start caring for one another. COVID shined a light on the ugliness of how we treat one another. And it wasn't a dim light, it was a bright light. And it said that we are letting down our most vulnerable. And everybody wants to say it somewhere else. But you know what? We can walk, I don't know, 10 blocks in any direction, and I bet I can find somebody who's food insecure. I bet I can walk 20 blocks and find people. I'll tell you the truth. Kathleen Cabell introduced me to a young woman. All she wanted was a safe house for her and her child. Her child now has asthma because of the only housing that they could afford. This is Brookline. This is Brookline. think about, and this is an old Watergate line, is to follow the money. Follow the money. You know, when I go through the town budget and I don't see a line item for food security, when I barely see a line for affordable housing, when I see nothing for child care, when I see that elder services are so underfunded, it's cruel. But we keep moving as if nothing can change. And I'm here to say that it can. I'm here to say that we can dip our hands into the taxes that we pay. Our taxes have to reflect our values. And for people that are in town meeting, that means that you may have to make an uncomfortable vote. But we have to do it because we are really talking about saving people's lives. And so I look at the line items that aren't there for poor people. You know, why in the hell is it so difficult for this town to provide Wi-Fi for people at BHA? It's $130,000 a year, and we can't provide them with Wi-Fi. Where's the Wi-Fi? Yeah, I sound angry because now people are talking about, an achievement gap. Well, I'm not an educator, but even I can connect those dots. But first and foremost, you have to care. First and foremost, you have to care. So this town's going to get $34 million from the American Rescue Plan Act. You remember when you were a kid and you used to just slip your hand into somebody's pocket, your mom's pocket, and take out 50 cents or $1? Because you knew nobody would, it was just like being a kid, right? We have to dip our hands into that money. And not as kids, but as equal partners. Because trust me, that money will get spent. It will get spent, and some of it should get spent on, guess what? Wi-Fi. Some of it should get spent to repair Brookline affordable housing, the state-funded housing. Now, I don't think anybody's here from BHA, but I'm going to tell you, the executive director was almost in tears begging for money from this town. And do you know what the refrain is? BHA is not part of the town. But do you know what the response is? The residents are. We've got to get money to those residents. And if we're taking in $34 billion and all they want to do is to correct the kitchens and bathrooms, we can't turn our backs. We can't turn our backs. There's another pool of money that's coming in, hopefully. And this is where I'm going to ask everybody to get out and vote for the Community Preservation Act. Vote for the Community Preservation Act, because that will help pay for affordable housing. Some of that money can go to repairing kitchens and bathrooms. But you know how we talk, and I'm going to end really quickly because I know there are other speakers. You know how we talk about climate change being an existential threat? It is. But if you are dying of asthma in your own kitchen, that is an existential threat too. If you never learn to read, that is an existential threat too. And this town is allowing it to happen. Its leaders are allowing it to happen. Speak up. Act up. I have this to ask of everybody here that as we get closer to town meeting, as we get closer to these elections, you vote for people that have the values, the intellect, and the stomach to look people in the eye and I will care for the most vulnerable in this community. Thank you.
Thank you, Deborah. Thank you so much. Another way you can actually, right now, you can get active in helping people in our community is if you pull up your phone and go to mutualaid.org. I would love for you to donate. Please donate to mutual aid. And we have people on the live stream right now and some other people that are involved. There's going to be donations happening. And so please go to mutualaid.org and donate some money. And that's an action we can take right now together. All right. So next up, coming up is Miriam Ashkenazi. Dr. Miriam Ashkenazi.
I'm just going to set this sign down right here. All right. Maybe not. There we go. All right. So, hi. That didn't work. So first I have to say I both love and hate that I have to follow Deborah. Also, I'm shorter than Deborah. Deborah is a hard act to follow, and I'm just very, very grateful she didn't give herself a coronary up here because my license is currently inactive. I really first have to thank Jonathan, and I have to thank Ryan and Ashley and Max for putting this all together. I have to thank musicians. This is beautiful, a beautiful day, and I have to thank you. Whenever I do house parties, it's really important I thank the people who are coming because time is precious, and our involvement in politics is important. And so I need to acknowledge that being here is an act of public service. So thank you for that. Thank you for, little kids, close your ears. So thank you for caring. I'm not allowed to swear. My campaign manager told me that more than once. All right, so I've been asked to talk about housing and police and education. And actually, for me, these things naturally have a place together, especially when we talk about structural racism and oppression. So for those of you who've heard me speak before, you know I like to talk about intersections. Life happens at the intersections. We do not really live our lives in the silos that we think we do. And when we talk about communities of color and structural oppression and Brookline, we're talking about the intersections of history, policy, and racism. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about the intersection of policing, housing, and education. For those who don't know, there was a historically federal policy called redlining that prevented people of color from buying houses in the suburbs. And while that federal policy no longer exists, there's plenty of evidence that acts of redlining still happen every day. And if you're a black family trying to get a mortgage from the bank, you know that because you're paying higher mortgage rates. And if you're trying to sell your house, you're getting your house assessed at lower values. And the evidence is very clear for that. So we see redlining, and we see it right here in Brookline. One of the earliest racial covenants, laws that kept black people out of the suburbs, originated here in Brookline. We have to know our history. History matters. So what does redlining have to do with education? Well, our schools are paid for by our property taxes. And when you have multi-million-dollar houses, guess what your schools look like? Oh, look around, folks. Right? So what we see across the United States and here in Brookline is a huge discrepancy in urban and suburban schools and the opportunities they provide. And that is the intersection of housing and education. That is what structural oppression looks like. So how does policing play into this? Lots of ways. I'm going to give you one example because Brian warned me I was being too wonky, too policy wonky. Okay, let's look at history again. We know the police force in the United States was developed to police poor people and people of color. This has not changed. It has evolved. school to prison pipeline. That is police officers in our schools arresting kids for behaviors that have been historically handled at school. And once these kids have records, it leads to more policing. It leads to more incarceration. It leads to less job opportunities. It leads to less wealth accumulation. So now we understand the intersection. We understand the history. What can we do about it? We need to claim our power. We have to fight against voter suppression in places like Georgia. But guess what, folks? We have a lot to do right here in Brookline. We must acknowledge that Brookline has a problem with structural racism, just like every other town and city in the United States of America. We are no exception. This is not a value judgment. This is a fact. Until we own it, we can't change it. We must use that knowledge to act. We need Brookline to enact and execute policies with a sharp lens on justice, good governance, and inclusivity. For example, and Deborah, yes, you love me and you know it. We need to provide Wi-Fi to the Brookline Housing Authority. We need to reimagine what the policing force could look like. We need to think about social services and preventative care. And we need to understand the public health implications of the COVID pandemic and start talking about recovery last year. We need to do all of that with an understanding of our history. And we need to be transparent. We must share power. Everyone must count. We need to elect representatives that reflect our values, and we must hold elected officials accountable. Please help me do this by voting before or on May 4th for the representation that you want this town to have. You have power. Flex it. Use it. Tell this town what's important to you.
Vote for Miriam! Vote for Miriam Ashkenazi! Select Board 2021! Thank you so much, Miriam. And just correction for the live streaming people here, it's mutualaidbrookline.org. Mutualaidbrookline.org. That's where you can go and donate to support mutual.com. Mutualaidbrookline.com. I stand corrected. All right. Coming up, we have Chichi Wu. Chichi Wu coming up next. Give it up for Chichi Wu, everybody.
Thank you, Jonathan. Thank you for having me here. Thank you for organizing this wonderful rally. I also want to thank all of the folks who showed up today. And I want to thank Deborah Brown and Miriam Ashkenazi for some amazing speeches. Give it up for them. I love them too, but I'm going to have a new policy that I am never speaking after them again, because that's a hard act to follow. So, my name's Chi-Chi Wu. I wear a bunch of different hats in town: Brookline Asian American Family Network, the Task Force Reimagining Policing. I'm going to talk a little bit about Asian Americans in Brookline. We've had a pretty crappy year. I'm allowed to curse because I'm only running for town meeting. So, we've had a really crappy year. And you might think, well, everyone's had a really crappy year. It's COVID, right? It's COVID. Well, the Asian American community, we've been dealing with two pandemics: COVID and racism. Some pretty bad racism. Now, I'm guessing you all heard about what happened in Atlanta, right? Yeah. 8 people dead, 6 of them Asian women. First mass shooting in months in the United States. But what a lot of folks don't realize is Atlanta didn't spring out in the middle of the air. It didn't just happen like that. It was a culmination of a year of hate, a culmination of a year of racism, a culmination of stabbings in Texas, of elderly pushed to death in Oakland, of attacks in the subway in New York City, that we've been dealing with for a whole year. You know, a year ago, we had a town hall in Brookline to talk about this issue, to talk about the racism and hate that the Asian American community is facing. It was helped organized by our next speaker, Raul Fernandez, and Heather Hamilton. And even then we knew we could see what was coming up. You know, we worked with the school to put out a statement in June. We worked on a curriculum for the high school students this past year. And during that time, it just built and built and built. The group Stop AAPI Hate collected thousands of examples of anti-Asian racism. And, you know, you probably heard about the spike, 150% increase. So Atlanta was a culmination. And, you know, after Atlanta, we got some really supportive statements from the select board, from the schools, from all these different organizations in town. And it was wonderful, and it was gratifying. Because, you know, Asian Americans are here in Brookline. We are a large part of Brookline. You know, I'm going to repeat this statistic till it, like, you're sick of hearing me and it comes out of my ears. We are 17% of Brookline, more than 1 in 6, and we are 20% in the schools, 1 in 5. But we are invisible here. And you certainly couldn't tell from some of the services and some of the support, and certainly not in terms of political offices and representation, that we are 1 in 6 residents in this town. And that's got to change. So statements are great, statements are wonderful, but we have to do more for the Asian American community in this town. We have to do more. So we at Bath put out a couple of lists of demands for what we want. On the school side, how do you address a pandemic of racism? With education. It starts with education. It starts with educating everyone about the history of Asian Americans in this country and the racism and the exclusion we've faced for decades and decades and decades. We were the first group to be shut out of the United States, prevented from coming here based on our race. We were, the Japanese Americans were herded into camps during World War II, 100,000 citizens, and people need to know about this history. Because there's this conception out there that, oh, the Asian American community, they're doing just fine. You know, their kids do well in school and go to Ivy League colleges. You know, they're a bunch of professionals. We don't need to worry about them. Well, as Deborah told you, no, that's not true. 19% of Asian Americans live in poverty in this town. That sentiment is what's called the model minority myth, and it's dangerous and it's harmful to Asian Americans who are poor, who need services, who struggle with mental illness, who struggle with physical disabilities, and we've got to do better by this. So in a little bit, next week you're going to hear from Raul about his brilliant, innovative proposal about Brookline Forward. But what I want to say is, as part to increase social services in this community, what I want to say is, if we're gonna have more social services, we have to have social services specifically targeted to the Asian American community. We need culturally appropriate services, we need bilingual services, and we need language access. That's the things we're asking the town to do, to provide more language access. You know, 13% of this town speaks an Asian language at home, and there are 3,400 residents who are Asian and speak English less than well. That's a lot of people. That's 6% of our population. And yet, when we asked for better language access, you know what we were told? Oh yeah, you know, that's something called the AT&T language line. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? The AT&T language line is not enough. You know, we have to better serve everyone in our community, and that includes the Asian American community. Thank you.
Thank you, Titi. that we need access. We need to support everyone in bringing social services, infrastructure that really will outlast all of us. So, our last but not least speaker is Raul Fernandez. Come on up, give it up for Raul.
Hey friends, how we doing? I want to first just say, thank you to Jonathan and the team for putting this event together, and also how much of a privilege it was to go after these amazing women in Brookline. Actually, 2 of them this year are Brookline Women of the Year. Two and Deborah Brown. We have a third, Bonnie Bastian, who's around here somewhere too, back there. I'm not sure if the others are here. And I'm sure with everything that Miriam's doing, that accolade will come her way in no time. So props to you too. I wanted to start by talking a bit to you about oppression. And I want to bring, I see plenty of very progressive folks here, and I also see, I'm glad to see some more moderate folks, and I want to have your ear for a moment. Because I was reminded recently that oppression wears a smile. It doesn't sneer or condescend like you might expect, nah. It pats you on the back, asks how you're doing, and then proceeds to ignore your response. If it did listen, it might understand the damage that it's done to you and those you love. Instead, it smiles and nods and daydreams while you talk. That's why it's always so surprised when you speak out, when you protest, when you riot. When it does engage, it ignores heartfelt pleas, logical arguments, and academic research. It's immune to facts and figures, viewing disparities as mere coincidences. It knows nothing of history except what it chooses to remember. It always favors the status quo, couching everything in an argument for the greater good. It's obsessed with fairness but has zero understanding of equity. It votes Republican and it votes Democrat. Mostly it wants you to believe that it doesn't exist except in some abstract form somewhere else. But if corporations are people, then so is oppression. These are not abstract beings. They are people in our spheres of influence, and they go by many names: friends, co-workers, neighbors, locally elected officials. We too often allow them to turn their heads when a mirror is set in front of them. We allow their ignorant views to persist despite clear evidence to the contrary. We allow them to minimize our struggle. We allow them to minimize us. And we do so at our own peril. Oppression is sinister in its indifference. Your resistance to it is warranted and necessary. Okay. I wanted to share that with you because I know that folks might think that what we're seeing in Brookline right now doesn't rise to the level of oppression, but I want you to really understand that indifference too is oppression. And that is a lot of what we're seeing, what we heard our earlier speakers talk about. It's issues that have been there, solutions that have been waiting to be put into place, and that have been met by indifference time and time again. We have some elected officials and others claiming to care about the struggles of some of the people we heard about today, but doing nothing to improve our condition. In fact, quite the opposite. Rather than doing the work to explore these problems and propose their own solutions, folks are too content to sit back and wait for solutions to come their way and then place judgment, saying, "I'm sorry, there's nothing we can do about that." Some of our neighbors are more concerned with protecting the status quo and antiquated institutions built on racist systems than they are in reimagining a community that includes us all as full participants. They use terms like neighborhood character to exclude us because tools like redlining are no longer available to them. They use over-policing to keep tabs on people of color and low-income communities, and they call it community engagement. They underfunded educational programs like ACE and the MECO program and say it's for the greater good. Neighbors, removing a slaveholder's name from one of our schools should not have been that hard. And eliminating police department programs that were created with no public participation, that have questionable outcomes and value at tremendous cost to us, over much needed social services that are going unfunded right now. Making that change should be a no-brainer. And sadly, in our community, it is not yet that. Now, there's a certain human tendency to believe that something isn't a problem because it isn't a problem for you. And even when made aware of these issues, that they're real, people who believe themselves to be good will make all kinds of excuses for inaction. I, a good person, would recognize that that is a problem. And because I don't see it as a problem, it must not be because I, a good person, don't believe that it is. See the circular thinking taking place. When it comes to social change, there are really two ways that we can go right now. One is to change the people, and the other is to change the people. And so there are many amazing groups out there that are doing some work on the first, changing the people, trying to get them to understand. Right? They go by names like Brookline for Racial Justice and Equity, and the Brookline Asian American Family Network, and the Brookline Community Coalition, and the Commission for Diversity, Inclusion, and Community Relations, and the Task Force to Reimagine Policing in Brookline, and the People of Color Coalition. They're doing that work to try to get our neighbors to understand the needs for the changes that the speakers that you heard earlier talked about today. Doing everything we can to change the people, and we have to continue those efforts. But at the same time, we have to move, and we have to act with a lot more urgency than this community is enacting right now. We all need to act as if our own freedoms are under threat because there are those for whom there is no other choice, and they are among us. The truth is, our freedom cannot wait for their understanding. It simply cannot. We need more safe, quality, affordable housing, and we need it right now. We need intergenerational wealth building, and we need it right now. We need universal, high-quality child care, pre-K, and extended day for every family in public and subsidized housing, and we need it right now. We need to prioritize the needs of those who need it most, and my friends, we need that to happen right now. So I appreciate all the folks that are learning and about these issues right now, and that's great. But if those people are in positions of power, if those people are town meeting members, if those people are select board members, or school committee members, or elected in any way, and they aren't ready to make those kinds of investments now, then we need to change those people by voting them out of office. We have an opportunity, y'all, with this election, to change the future of Brookline. I'm confident that there are many more of us. I've knocked on these doors, I've met folks in Brookline. I know that our leadership is not as progressive as the people of this town. And so when we talk about the need to change what's happening, I think that Brookline is rising. That there is a swelling support of change in this community, and it's been there for a long time. And because of the structural barriers to participation in our form of government, we are not being led by the best that Brookline has to offer. We just have to step into our power. We have to recognize that when we come together, that social change is collective, that it's cumulative, and that it happens over time across this continuum, and that we can work together to make change in our own community. It's up to us to reckon with the sordid history of this town that you heard about earlier, because while none of us may be culpable for the wrongs that have happened here, we are all responsible for doing something about it. We start to close. Listen, there was something good about Brookline that brought us all here, right? But we're all also here in this place at this time because we think Brookline can do better. Both things can be true. There's an analogy that I use with my students, and it's about moving from one place to another, moving from a place of injustice to a place of justice. And I talk about a moving truck and a moving experience, and the idea that many hands make light work, and that there are some of us that are in a great position and strong enough to carry the dressers and the beds, the heavy things, right, in that house. And that's needed. But we all know that mostly we've got a lot of stuff, a lot of small stuff that needs to be moved from here to there, and we can't leave it behind. And what we need is not everybody that can lift the heavy dresser and the mattress and all that stuff. We need people that can grab a lamp. We need people that can grab a small box of pillows or something light. But the bottom line is everything's got to go. We can no longer stay here. We can no longer be satisfied with where we are. We need to get our community together and move forward. Now, what we proposed, this came out of the task force to reimagine policing in Brookline, is something called Brookline Forward. And it is a radical reinvestment of funds that we've been spending, again, on programs that have shown little value to the town and certainly its residents, for social services that invest in youth and families, that invest in older folks in our community, that invest in people who need support because of mental health issues, that invest. We have to stop thinking about our budget as something that we're spending, and instead as something that we're investing in our future, okay? So I want you, over the course of this next month, before this election comes, to think about what it is that you can lift, and how you can get involved in moving our community forward because it's so desperately needed. You know, I've got my family here, and you know, I've thought long and hard about whether or not I can keep doing this work. You know, being in a position where I'm fighting the good fight, but not exactly being able to make all the change that I wanted to make. And I remember this past summer when I was out here with many of you folks protesting some of the injustices and atrocities that have happened in this country, but also protesting to make our own community in Brookline better. And I remember being really exhausted, tired, like bone tired, right? And it's been difficult to keep doing this work, I'll be honest with you. And the thing that's kept me in it are all the good people that I've met as part of this, all the good folks that have never been activists before, have never given public comment before, have never stepped into their power in this way before. They give me a lot of heart. And then the other thing, of course, is my family. And you know, it's real. Thank you. It's real hard when you think about raising kids in this community and not feeling like they have the same opportunities as everyone else, and even knowing that as a person with relative privilege, that's the case for me. I can only imagine what it's like for others. You know, some folks know or don't know. You know, I grew up in public housing in New York, and to live in a place like Brookline felt like a dream, like an absolute dream. And it still does, I'll be honest with you. I'm really glad and proud to live in this community. What I gotta tell you is now that I am here, I know that we can do so much better, and I know we can do better for my family, and I know we can do better for your family. And not only that, but I know that we have to. We have to. We cannot stay put, stay where we are. We have to move Brookline forward. And so I'm here to tell you, I'm not going anywhere. And I hope you're not either. What we need are reinforcements. We need you to step up and get involved, make noise, show up, and especially be there on May 4th. So I'm going to say thank you to everybody for being here. Love y'all. Whatever I can do to make your life better, I'm trying to do it. Thank you.
All right, give it up one more time. Thank you, Raul. Thank you, Raul. Thank you, Chi. Thank you, Deborah. Thank you, Miriam. Everybody, I'm going to ask you to hang out one more time, and I want to give a shout out to Donnell O'Neill, who's back there. And I want to say thank you, everyone, for coming out. We're going to have some more music that's going to happen in just a minute. Thank you. Can you just ask them to figure I'm going to say 2 words, please? Okay. Just a few words from the Art of Conquest, a few words. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for coming out here. Let me just say a couple of things. I've lived in this community for 30 some odd years. I say that 1982. And I have seen, okay, institutional racism here in this community, which all the speakers who have presented this afternoon have mentioned. If the speakers mention it, okay, about racism in our society, I want you to look at racism in Brookline. The fact that we don't have representation from black males in this speaking group bothers me. The next time any organization, any group has a presentation that they want to make to this community, please make sure that you have black males represented. We're 6% of the population in this country, and we're 40% of the prison population. Okay? That's unacceptable. And don't look at Brookline as being a panacea. Read my column in the Tab yesterday, okay, about the arrest rate of black and Latino males in the town of Brookline. We are seized upon, we are denied access to jobs, okay? We're at the bottom, and I've watched this again for almost half a century, and we continue to allow it to fester. Let's deal with it, and we can start by allowing us to be a part of any program that exists, okay, in this community. Thank you. Thank you, Arthur. All right, everybody, hang out if you'd like, chat among each other. Billy Wilder is back. Give it up for Billy Wilder.
Thank you to all the incredible speakers. John, can we move this mic back?
Absolutely.
This song I wrote on this past Sunday. It's called "We Are the Ones We Were Waiting For." I think it resonates with the theme here that we can't be waiting for change to come to us. We are the ones to cultivate it. And we'd like you to sing with us on that refrain. We are the ones we're waiting for. Brand new song. Child is dancing in the morning light. It's all in a grooving. Freedom alive, freedom alive, freedom alive. The world through her eyes, new every day. May her spirit guide us to another way, to another way, to another way. We are the ones we're waiting for. Back in my mind, drowning in pain, were millions of pieces shattered in the rain, shattered in the rain, shattered in the rain. Climb up that mountain so we can see below. We're living in the madness, don't know where to go, don't know where to go. house on fire, our home is burned all down. Smoke signals tell us time to turn around, time to turn around, time to turn around. Many friends we've lost, good men have died. A year filled with sorrow, the tears we've cried, tears we've cried, tears we've cried. Everybody, we are the ones we're waiting for. Hey. Story ain't over, this page has just begun. Out of the darkness, step into the sun, step into the sun, step into the sun. Child is dancing in the morning light, it's all in a groove and freedom alive. Freedom life, freedom life. We are the ones we're waiting for. We are the ones we're waiting for. Thank you so much. Brand new song, We Are the Ones. We have some very special guests we want to invite up here. One of our dear friends who helped pull all this together along with so many other people. Mr. John Monday, everybody. Invite him up, give him a round. We want to invite up Laura Smith and Linda Lila to join us. You want to join us, Kyle? All right, yeah, John, come on up, my man. We're gonna do a song that I started to work out as I was at Standing Rock in Cannonball, North Dakota, and joining the peaceful, prayerful resistance against the Dakota Access Pipeline. And this song is called Till Your Well Runs Dry, and the whole concept is you never miss your water till your well runs dry. But we're here to change that and be with our awareness and with our action. So we're going to sing it for you. Come on in a little closer, friends. We invite you to come on a little closer if you can. And we're going to just give a shout out. We got Zamara Dungo on the percussions and the drums and the singing. Real human beings here. Please let them know that you're alive. We got Chris Sartori on the bass guitar. Nice. We got Rob Flax on the violin and synthesizer. We're Billy Wilder, celebrating the release of our new EP, Good to Be With You. The live stream may have ended because my phone has died, but we're live for live right here with you all. you gonna do when your well runs dry? What you gonna do when your well runs dry? You said you love me, and then you let it. You broke every promise. You made every bed. You never miss your water till your well runs dry. So tell me, what you gonna do when your well runs dry? What you gonna do when your well runs dry? What you gonna do when your well runs dry? I'd like to know what you gonna do when your well runs dry. So tell me, what you gonna do when your well runs dry? What you gonna do when your well runs dry? What you gonna do when your well runs dry? I'd like to know what you gonna do when your well runs dry. We pray before you on sacred land. You stood on a mountain with guns in your hand. But I know that you wonder, and you're feeling blue. So tell me, what you gonna do when your well runs dry? What you gonna do when your well runs dry? What you gonna do when your well runs dry? I'd like to know what you gonna do when your well runs dry. Come on, everybody. What you gonna do when your well runs dry? What you gonna do when your well runs dry? You can't drink the oil, even in the soil. But me with Jody, water and light. But I'd like to know. I'd like to know. I'd like to know. I'd like to know. Give it up for the Wilder Family Singers, everybody. Lean on the vocals. We're going to play a song off our new EP right now. This is called Sahara. We've got about one or two more for you all. Thanks for being with us today.
I could still get someone just put it on the bottom of the screen. Because you want to keep playing, right?
We want to invite John up for one last song.
Oh, okay. I haven't heard this one.
All right. As we work towards transforming our community, I think it's important that we remember we're here in the community of Earth. This is our planet that we're a part of. Humble guests, short time here with a long footprint. So as we think about all of these really important social issues, it all comes back to the Earth that we live off and our dependency and interdependency together here. So this song is called The Great Blue Heron, and it's about the spirit of the Great Blue Heron looking down on us humans. What does she see, and how can we steer our course towards a more integrated and beautiful existence together? We invite you to sing with us and imagine the freedom of the Great Blue Heron as Rob picks out this melody.